Welcome to Robert Joseph Silveria Jr., the enigmatic boxcar killer. John Dignan had fallen on hard times. Homeless and struggling to survive, he often found shelter in the abandoned boxcars that dotted the train yards of the American West. Dignan, like many others in his situation, was invisible to society, living on the fringes and largely forgotten. It was in one of these boxcars that John Dignan unknowingly crossed paths with Robert Joseph Silveria Jr., a man who would become his merciless killer. Silveria, a drifter himself, was no stranger to the transient life of the railways. However, beneath his seemingly unassuming exterior lurked a violent and predatory nature. One cold and desolate night, as Dignan sought refuge from the harsh elements, he encountered Silveria in the dimly lit boxcar. At first, Silveria may have appeared to be just another fellow traveler seeking shelter from the cold. However, it didn't take long for the encounter to turn sinister. Without warning, Silveria launched a brutal attack on the defenseless Dignan. His victim had no chance to escape or fight back. Silveria's violence escalated, and he mercilessly beat Dignan to death within the confines of the boxcar, leaving behind a gruesome scene. After ending Dignan's life, Silveria callously left the lifeless body in the boxcar, abandoned like countless others before him. The murder was just one in a series of heinous acts committed by Silveria as he traveled the rails, preying on the vulnerable. Silveria's reign of terror continued as he moved from town to town, targeting those who lived on the margins of society. His victims, often homeless or transient individuals, were easy prey for a killer who operated in the shadows, leaving little evidence in his wake. It wasn't until 1996 that Robert Joseph Silveria Jr.'s rampage came to an end. He was apprehended by law enforcement, finally putting an end to the terror he had unleashed on the railways. Silveria was subsequently convicted of multiple murders, including the brutal killing of John Dignan. Robert Joseph Silveria Jr., infamously known as the Boxcar Killer, was a serial killer who terrorized the railways of the United States during the 1990s. His life was marked by a disturbing descent into violence and murder. Robert Joseph Silveria Jr. was born on July 21, 1962, in San Jose, California, USA. His early life appeared relatively ordinary, but signs of trouble began to emerge as he entered adolescence. Silveria struggled with personal issues, including substance abuse and brushes with the law. Silveria's criminal record started with minor offenses, but soon escalated to more serious crimes. His transient lifestyle, drifting along the railways and hopping freight trains, provided him with anonymity and access to vulnerable targets. Silveria's killing spree began during the early 1990s as he traveled the rails across the United States. His victims were often homeless or transient individuals, living on the fringes of society. He would approach them under the pretense of camaraderie before launching brutal and fatal attacks, typically beating or strangling them to death. Modus operandi. Silveria's modus operandi was characterized by extreme violence and a lack of a clear pattern. His victims were chosen seemingly at random, making it challenging for law enforcement to establish a clear link between the crimes. The authorities launched an extensive manhunt for the Boxcar Killer, recognizing the pattern of violence that stretched across state lines. Silveria managed to evade capture for several years, perpetuating a reign of terror. It wasn't until 1996 that Silveria was finally apprehended. His capture was the result of diligent police work and the cooperation of law enforcement agencies across multiple jurisdictions. In the years following his capture, Robert Joseph Silveria Jr. was convicted of multiple counts of murder, including the brutal killing of John Dignan. He received a life sentence in prison without the possibility of parole, ensuring that he would never again threaten the lives of the vulnerable. Robert Joseph Silveria Jr., the Boxcar Killer, had several disturbing and intriguing facts associated with his life and crimes. Silveria's transient lifestyle, hopping freight trains and traveling across state lines, allowed him to evade law enforcement and operate in different regions, making it challenging for authorities to track him. Silveria managed to evade capture for several years, committing a series of murders without leaving a clear pattern for investigators to follow. His ability to remain at large added to the difficulty of apprehending him. Silveria's victims were primarily homeless or transient individuals living on the fringes of society. He targeted those who were less likely to be reported missing or whose disappearances might not immediately raise suspicions. Unlike some serial killers who have discernible motives, Silveria's crimes appeared to lack a clear pattern or motive. He targeted victims seemingly at random, leaving investigators perplexed. Silveria's killing spree spanned multiple states across the United States, making it one of the more geographically extensive serial killing sprees in recent memory. His capture was the result of collaboration between law enforcement agencies across different states, demonstrating the importance of interagency cooperation in apprehending serial killers who cross jurisdictional boundaries. Silveria was convicted of multiple counts of murder and received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. His incarceration ensures that he will never pose a threat to society again. Silveria's case received significant media attention, drawing public interest and raising awareness about the dangers faced by homeless and transient populations. The survivors and families of Silveria's victims endured profound pain and trauma. Many continue to struggle with the aftermath of his crimes, emphasizing the importance of support and resources for survivors of violent crimes. Silveria's case has been studied by criminologists and law enforcement agencies to gain insights into the mind and behavior of a serial killer who targeted vulnerable populations. The story of Robert Joseph Silveria Jr. remains a chilling reminder of the danger posed by serial killers who prey on society's most vulnerable individuals and the relentless pursuit of justice needed to bring such individuals to account for their crimes. Thank you for delving into the chilling world of Robert Joseph Silveria Jr.